Hello and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast. I am your host, Fabrice, and joining me here in the Murrieta studios is Dr. David Burns. Hi, David.
Hi, Fabrice.
Dr. David Burns has been a pioneer in the development of cognitive therapy, and he is the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 20 languages. He is an emeritus adjunct clinical professor of psychiatry at the Stanford University School of Medicine. So last time we covered the 5 secrets briefly, although we did focus on some stories that really showed the importance of the disarming technique. And I know that you wanted to kind of put the accent on the errors that people make sometimes when they're using the 5 secrets, right?
Yes, absolutely, and because it's really a pretty profound thing. It can be a life changer to learn the 5 secrets. It was incredible for me, not only in my career, suddenly being able to develop better connections with my patients, particularly those who were critical or fearful or resistant or oppositional, but also in my personal life, getting closer to colleagues, wife, kids, family members, students, people attending my workshops. I would say in particular the disarming technique, all of them are important, but the disarming technique has been a tremendous game changer for me. But just before we go into some of the deeper aspects of the 5 secrets, just to keep clear for people, I'll briefly define them. There are 5 communication techniques. They're organized around EAR. E equals empathy, A equals assertiveness, R equals respect. And you need to bring all 3 of these components to a troubled interaction if you want to turn it around in a profound way quickly. Now, the 3 listening skills or empathy skills are the disarming technique, thought and feeling, empathy, and inquiry. The disarming technique means finding truth in what the other person says, even if you think it's irrational, distorted, unfair, illogical, and self-serving.
Yeah.
And that's based on the law of opposites that says if you agree with a criticism that seems totally irrational, you'll immediately put the lie to it. In contrast, if you defend yourself, which virtually everyone does practically all the time, if you defend yourself from an unfair criticism, you'll actually validate it and prove that the criticism is correct. We'll come back to that in a minute. Now, there's 2 forms of empathy, thought empathy and feeling empathy. Thought empathy is repeating the other person's words so they can see you heard what they said.
Yeah.
Feeling empathy is acknowledging the other person's feelings based on what he or she just said to you. Like, are they feeling anxious, hurt, lonely, angry? What are their feelings? And then inquiry is defined as asking general probing questions.
Yeah, the famous "tell me more."
Yeah, to learn more about how the other person is thinking and feeling. The assertiveness technique. Those are the 3 EAR. That's the 3 empathy skills, listening skills. The assertiveness technique is called I feel statements. That's sharing your feelings with a statement. I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling awkward. I'm feeling uncomfortable.
I'm feeling pissed off.
I'm feeling pissed off. Absolutely. And then the respect skill used to be called stroking, which means saying something kind, affectionate, admiring, respectful, even in the heat of battle.
And you said that you wanted to rename that affirmation.
Yeah, affirmation, because the word stroking is a little bit on the crude side.
Yeah.
So we can call that affirmation. Now, one general comment, a couple of general comments. You're not going to be using the 5 secrets of effective communication unless you want to get closer to the other person, to develop a better relationship. If you want to
we're making that assumption here. Yeah.
But if you want to continue battling with the other person and fighting with them, then you don't need to use these secrets. And if you don't want a better relationship with that person, then you don't need any of this. The second thing is that if you do want to learn the 5 secrets, it's not easy. The rewards are enormous, but quite a bit of new learning will be involved because these aren't the things you naturally want to do. And listeners who want more than just these podcasts should read my book, Feeling Good Together, which is a mass market paperback type of book. And it will show you exactly how to use the 5 secrets with lots of examples and exercises. And the third thing is that you don't do it in any formulaic way. It has to come from the heart. It has to be spontaneous, or it's not going to be effective. And then finally, when people try to learn the 5 secrets, there's errors they make with each of the 5 secrets, and we're going to touch base on what those are today.
Great. So shall we start with the disarming technique?
Yeah. The biggest problem, well, there's a lot of barriers to using the disarming technique. One is that you may not be able to see the truth and what the other person is saying.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah, so you kind of argue because you say they can't be right. Just to keep things a little disguised here, because I don't want to betray confidence, but in one of the training groups I have at Stanford each week, one of the novice therapists described a conflict with one of her patients, and he was very aggressive and saying, you don't seem to have any feelings, you don't seem to be understanding me, you're not getting me, you're not connecting with me. And she and the other students in the group who were also novices, their proposed responses was to try to point out to the fellow that he was wrong, that she did care about him, that she was helping him, and that type of thing. And the problem with that is that will confirm to him that he's right, because once again she's not hearing what he has to say. But it was incredibly difficult for them to see or acknowledge that in fact her skills are not very good yet. She hadn't been acknowledging his feelings, that there hadn't been warmth and trust in the relationship. What this patient was saying was actually true. And if you can't see the truth, and if you're not willing to see the truth in what the other person is saying, then it's going to be difficult to use this technique. And
well, let's say you're willing, but you can't.
Well, then you kind of have to buy my book, Feeling Good Together, and recommend it to all of your friends.
Well, I have the book and I recommend it, but sometimes I'm having a hard time too.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to kind of think about it. I've had times when it took me a day or two to have it suddenly dawn on me that the person who was criticizing was saying something really true. I'll give you an example. A few years back, I was teaching, and this is not only for therapists, this is for all human beings, but this is a therapy example. I was teaching the disarming technique, and one of the residents said, what do you do when what the person is saying is just false? How can you agree with someone?
Yeah.
And I said, well, give me an example of something a patient said to you that you think you couldn't agree with. And this fellow said, well, just this morning, we had this teenage boy who was involuntarily hospitalized on the locked unit. So he was locked up in the hospital against his will, the psychiatric unit, because he was suicidal, probably. And he said, so Jimmy shouted at me, you're stupid. Now, how could I agree with something like that? Now, this resident, by the way, got was top in his class at Harvard undergraduate. Then he went and got a PhD at MIT in electrical engineering.
Yeah,
and was like some superstar. And then he came to Stanford Medical School and was a superstar. And he does research, and now he's a psychiatric resident. So he's saying, how could I agree with Jimmy, who's saying I'm stupid? Well, at some level, I guess we could say the guy's not stupid. He probably has 180 IQ and
sure.
all of these achievements. But is Jimmy telling him something that's true, Fabrice?
Well, from Jimmy's point of view, yes.
But I mean, in ultimate reality, is Jimmy saying something that's absolutely correct? Not just from his subjective point of view, but that's actually really, truly valid.
Well, and when it comes to Jimmy, that resident, was acting stupid.
Yes, exactly. Because
in that instance,
because he's not connecting with Jimmy in a way that's working. He's doing lame things, and his skills are poor. He may be a genius in electrical engineering, but he's not yet highly experienced in working with angry teenagers who are locked up involuntarily and who want out. And so he could respond this way: Jimmy, at this moment, I am feeling pretty darn stupid, because I'm not doing a very good job of connecting with you. And in fact, you mentioned too that I'm like a prison warden here. I feel like I'm a prison guard or a prison warden holding you against your will. And to tell you the truth, I don't like the feeling either. And I can imagine, and it breaks my heart to be holding you here like this. This morning you told one of the nurses you want to get out of here to commit suicide, and if I let you out and you took your life, I don't think I would ever forgive myself. Your life is precious. But you have every right to be angry with me because I've done a lame job. I've been bossing you around and controlling you, and I haven't been hearing what's going on. And I have to kind of plead guilty as accused. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Now, what's Jimmy going to conclude if he hears that?
Well, Jimmy's going to feel heard, which is going to, again, disprove the stupidity that he initially perceived.
Yeah, he'll say, this doctor's not so stupid after all. But the paradox is when you agree with what feels like a false criticism, you put the lie to it. Whereas if you were to defend yourself and say, oh, Jimmy, I went to MIT, where are you at, Dodo Bird? It's just like further put down to him. And he's really saying something angrily, but that shows some hurt, tender feelings that are valid. Another problem that people have when using the disarming technique is that it involves the death of the ego. You see, when patients criticize therapists, they're generally hitting the therapist in a vulnerable area, and we want to defend ourselves. See, a therapist doesn't want to feel incompetent or stupid because we've devoted our life to handling conflict. And when the patient says, you're screwing up, you're not helping my depression, you're not connecting with me, it hurts. And to say, you're right, I have been failing you, involves the death of the ego. Now,
Can you say more about what you mean by the death of the ego?
The pride. You have to give up your pride and admit that you have failed, that you are flawed, that you're failing this person.
We're talking about humility, really, right?
Yes, absolutely. But it's painful. It's painful to die. No one wants to die, so we cling to life by defending our ego, defending our pride, insisting that we're not that bad. And the more you do that, the more painful it becomes. Once you've died, it feels great. You join the Grateful Dead. You because the other person lowers their defenses, and then you can connect in a meaningful way. Yeah. But our pride gets in the way. I don't like to admit when I fail in one of my teaching seminars at Stanford, when I do a bad job. I don't like to admit that I did a bad job because it hurts my pride, because I want to see myself as this fantastic teacher. And when I make stupid errors and turn people off, it's painful. And that's another reason we avoid the disarming technique, because we don't want that ego to die. Another thing is that we'll often agree with the person in a patronizing way. Like a patient will say to a therapist, you don't get me, you don't understand me, you don't care about me. And then the therapist will say, I can see how you might feel that way. And that statement is a put down. It's not genuine disarming, because you're saying you feel that way, but you're wrong. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I see that. It's interesting because we often use statements like this. I can see how you might have this opinion with your distorted view.
Exactly.
And I'm very compassionate toward you for being so wrong.
Yes, exactly. And therapists make that kind of mistake all the time, as do people who aren't therapists. Well, anyway, those are a few of the disarming
now, I have
errors.
A question for you. If somebody comes at me saying you're stupid, and I agree, I say, well, you're right, I'm stupid, and they go, well, damn right you are. So why don't you stop being it?
Yeah. Well, if you use one technique in the absence of others,
Yeah.
it will come across as formulaic if it doesn't come from the heart.
Yeah.
And in that case, the error that the person made was not to acknowledge the patient's feelings or to share your own.
Yeah.
You say, yes, I am stupid. There's a kind of flatness there.
Yeah.
But if you were to say, wow, Jim, I'm sensing some pretty strong anger from you right now. You're saying I'm stupid, and to tell you the truth, I'm feeling pretty awkward and embarrassed right now because I'm feeling kind of stupid, and I think I've been doing a crappy job of connecting with you. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Then you're much less likely to get a hostile response. When people think that the 5 secrets will result in a hostile response, it's almost never or virtually never because the 5 secrets failed. It's because it was applied in an ineffective or formulaic manner. The thought empathy is repeating what the other person says, and the big thought empathy error for therapists, but it's also true for the general public, is that when someone is criticizing you, you see thought empathy means repeating their words. So I often give audiences this exercise. I say, I'm going to be the difficult patient. I want someone in the audience to be the therapist. And all you have to do is repeat my words. And so someone volunteers, and I say, now I'm your patient. And I say something like, well, Mary, or Dr. Mary, or whatever, I've been coming to you for 18 months, and I've been doing your stupid damn homework assignments. I'm paying you good money, and I'm more depressed today than the first day when I came to see you. And then I say, now, see if you can summarize that. And they can't. I said 4 things, and they'll say, they'll repeat it by saying something like, David, you've been coming to me for quite a while, and you're still depressed today. Well, they edited out 2 of the painful pieces. I'm paying you good money, and I'm doing
the homework.
Your damn stupid homework assignments. And when you edit things out of and they also softened the others. It didn't say, coming for 18 months and I'm more depressed.
Yeah.
You say you've been coming to me for a while and you're still depressed. You see, we don't want to hear the bad news. So you don't really repeat the other person's words, and then they get more agitated because you haven't gotten it yet. Another thing about thought empathy, and I've had.
So before you move on, how would you actually do the thought empathy on this particular sentence?
I say, Jimmy, just let me see your Mary or Fabrice or Jose or whoever. Those are some pretty powerful words you just made, and I took a couple notes here when you were speaking. Let me see if I got it. I think you were saying that you've been coming to me for 18 months. That's for sure. That's true. And that you're more depressed today than the first day you came to see me. And I can see that's true because your score on the depression test this morning was the highest it's ever been. And you're also saying that you're doing all of the damn homework assignments I've been giving you, and you're paying me good money, and yet I haven't helped. Now that would just be 100% on thought empathy. Now I wouldn't leave it at that. I would use feeling empathy, inquiry, use some of the other techniques, but it's just repeating back what the person said.
But what I noticed is you didn't just repeat back in one stream everything they said word for word. It's more like you took the different chunks, you validated them by saying, well, I can see this is true because. Yeah. And you also you did not do what I noticed. It was not a rote repeat.
Right.
Like even when you said, and you've been doing my damn homework. You didn't say it in, well, you've been doing my damn homework. And it was more like, well, almost like apologetically, like this is your damn homework.
Exactly. Tone and genuineness are going to be crucial. Now, again, we haven't done the feeling empathy. We haven't done the disarming, the I feel. I mean, there's a lot more that we could add to that response. But the another error that people make, general public and therapists alike, when I'm training them, is that even when you're trying to do the 5 secrets, there's a tendency to get so anxious when you're under attack that you get spaced out and you start thinking, oh, how am I going to respond to this? And so you lose track of what the person is saying. So by the time they finish, you can't remember most of what they said, and you talk off at right angles, and then it escalates. Those are some of the main.
And how would you fix this error?
Well, what I do when I'm training therapists or anyone in this, I have them jot down. Like if we're doing an exercise to learn it, one person attacks and then the other person tries to use the 5 secrets. I have them jot down on a piece of paper what the person is saying, and it's remarkably helpful. And it's really the only way I've seen the therapist can really understand what a patient has just said to them.
I know that some people don't like to do that because they do not make eye contact with the patient.
Well, I do. You can look at a person in the eye and jot down and look them in the eye. I've always done it my whole career, and I haven't had too much trouble with it. It would be harder in a family situation, would seem more abnormal. But you can actually do it in a therapy setting, and I haven't seen therapists who can do thought empathy effectively without taking notes. Again, it seems so easy to repeat back what someone said, but if you put people to the test in a role play, they don't do it very well.
Okay.
Now, feeling empathy, and we'll expand on this stuff in future podcasts, but just as kind of the nuts and bolts of what the techniques are and how to do them and what errors you may be likely to make. Feeling empathy is acknowledging the other person's feelings. Like if the patient has said, I'm coming for 18 months and doing all this work and you're not helping me and I'm paying you. What are the names of that patient's emotions, client's emotions? How's he or she feeling?
She's feeling angry.
Yeah, angry. What other feelings?
Resentful, frustrated.
Great.
Unhappy, probably.
Mm-hmm. Disappointed. Ripped off.
Well, that's more like a judgment than a feeling, but yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
betrayed.
Yeah, betrayed, hopeless, lonely. Any of those things. And
abandoned.
Yeah. So feeling empathy would be to say, I don't know how you're feeling, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're feeling pretty discouraged and disappointed and maybe a little bit frustrated or ripped off or anxious or maybe even a bit angry with me, and for good reason. And then inquiry would be, I wonder if I'm reading you right, and could you tell me how you are feeling and what that's been like for you? And that would be inquiry. Now, the error that people make on feeling empathy is they just don't acknowledge the other person's feelings, or if they try, they overlook anger. Anger is very difficult for therapists to deal with, and I imagine in the general public, it's the same thing.
Sure.
Give you an example of how hard that is. I did a demonstration at Beck's Clinic, the Cognitive Therapy Center in Philadelphia a number of years ago, and I was doing an empathy training demonstration, and I was emphasizing that it's almost impossible for therapists to acknowledge the patient's anger, even when instructed to. And if you don't acknowledge the anger of someone who's angry, they'll escalate because you haven't seen yet, you haven't acknowledged where they're coming from.
Well, anger seeks a reaction.
Absolutely. And so I said, I want to do a demonstration of how difficult this is, and I need 2 volunteers. So the director of clinical training volunteered to be the patient in the role, the therapist, and one of his colleagues volunteered to be the difficult patient, difficult client. And so I said, now she's going to be the most difficult patient you can imagine. She's just going to rip you to shreds, and then I want you to respond using the 5 secrets. And I said to him, now the one thing you won't be able to do is acknowledge her anger.
So you already told him ahead of time. Yeah.
Yes, I said no therapist in the United States has ever been able to acknowledge patient's anger, and no one ever will be able to. It's actually been shown to be an impossibility. But you can try to be the first one, and all you'll have to say, wow, you seem like you might be really angry, but keep in mind, you will not be able to do that.
So you're doing hypnosis.
Yeah, right. So he was all determined to use the 5 secrets and to acknowledge her anger. And so she starts out and she rips into him and she just angry, disillusioned, bitter patient. And because she knew him, she knew his vulnerable spots. So he started criticizing him on things about him that were really valid.
Yeah.
And you could just see him turning bright red. And then she stopped, and now it's his turn to respond, show his stuff. And he just looks in total panic. You can hear a pin drop in the room. And I'm so grateful I'm not in his chair right now. and 30 seconds went by. And all the students, everyone, what's our director of clinical training going to do? And finally he leaned forward to her and said, "You must be a very lonely woman." And then he stopped. I said, "Are you done?" He said, "Yeah, how did I do?" And I said, "Is there one emotion that no therapist has ever been able to acknowledge?" And he hit himself on the head. He says, I made that exact error.
Yeah.
So that's the feeling empathy error, and it takes a lot of practice to overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
The error on inquiry, which is tell me more, is therapists will say, and husband, wife, or couples, partners, arguments make the same error, is instead of asking for more information, you ask how you can fix the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
And therapists will say, "Can you tell me how I could help you better?" or something like that. And that's a very poor move in a therapy situation or in a relationship conflict in your family. In therapy, the other person doesn't know how you can do better. They're not your supervisor. They're not an expert in psychotherapy. But in addition, they need to express their feelings. And when you say, "How can I do better?" it's like telling the person, "Shut up. I don't want to hear any more of this negativity. Let's make nice now. Let's solve the problem." But people don't want to solve the problem now. Maybe 5-10 minutes from now, we can get onto that. They need to tell you how they're feeling.
Yeah, you need to come to a place of understanding with each other before you can do any kind of problem resolution.
Yeah. Now, just to bring this along so we stay in our time limit here, the error on "I feel" statements, that's the assertiveness skill, is well, there are many common errors, but when I ask someone express your feelings to this person, they'll say, "Well, I feel like you're being a jerk."
That's right.
And that's not an "I feel" statement.
Of course, yeah.
But an attack on the other. Another thing is that people will not express their feelings because you judge that your feelings are incorrect. And this is automatic. People, we hide our feelings. We're hiding behind a mask most of the time, and we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be open. So just not expressing your feelings.
I know it's not using the technique. In fact, I notice that happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
I use all the other ones and not this one.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll happen to be in my teaching. Like if I told the residents last night that the first few meetings that I went home feeling ashamed that I hadn't done a good job, and then I didn't want to tell them that I was feeling ashamed because the Sanford professor isn't supposed to feel ashamed. You're supposed to be an expert, right?
Right.
And then they said it was the best group ever.
Yeah.
They liked the humanness and the vulnerability, but we don't want to do it. Another thing is to express yourself in overly strong language that's off-putting, or to express your feelings in an aggressive way. You see, there's a difference between sharing your angry feelings in a respectful way and lashing out, acting out with your angry feelings. Yeah. And what we want to do most of the time is to lash out and to say, you're a piece of SH or something, or go screw yourself, rather than saying, "I'm feeling hurt and angry right now."
Okay, but if I say to a loved one, I'm feeling angry at you, it may, even though I may say it in a very gentle way, it may sound harsh anyhow.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with anger, and the way I always combine it with stroking,
Yeah.
or affirmation. Like I might say, Fabrice or Melanie or whoever the person is, I need you to know that I'm pretty damn pissed off right now, and I'm really angry with you. I feel like I want to strangle your damn neck, to tell you the truth. And the reason for that is because I love you so much, or you mean so much to me, and it's so painful for me when we're at odds. But another reason I'm angry is because I believe there's a lot of truth in what you've been saying, and my pride doesn't want to admit it. But I really care about you. Tell me more where you've been coming from and how you're experiencing it.
So you have to moderate it. You have to put some...
and that would be an example of being extremely open with your anger, with your feelings, but in a gentle and loving way by combining it with stroking. And finally, the main stroking error is to say something phony to the person, like, oh, it would take you so much courage to say that, or I'm so grateful that you told me how you were feeling.
Yeah.
Formulaic things like that aren't genuine compliments, but just kind of psychobabble.
Yeah. Wow, that was kind of a very well-packed session.
Whirlwind tour through
the errors in the 5 secrets. And so I don't know if we've covered enough of the 5 secrets.
Well, we may have another one on it to bring it to life, and yet another way.
It feels that way.
We're chipping away at it, and listeners who are really interested may need a bit more. Right now, I know you've got to go see a patient. I've got to go get a haircut. So
I guess
goodbye to everyone until our next podcast.
Until the next one. All right. Thank you so much, David.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes for this podcast under the blog page, and where you can leave your comments and questions. The website has an abundance of resources for therapists as well as non-therapists, including books, workshops, a list of online training groups around the world, and much more. Theme music is Gypsy Jazz in Paris, 1935, composed and performed by Brett Van Donzel. I am your host, Fabrice Nye, and I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.